The opinions expressed in the following video are solely those of boattest.com and its test captain. That doesn't apply here. This
I
is
love
all
it.
me.
Captain Steve, what is the favorite boat you've ever tested?
Favorite boat ever tested would be the Riviera 6000 sport yacht.
And what is the most impressive yacht factory that you've ever toured?
That would be the Schaefer factory in Brazil. Very impressive factory. They do a lot of right things there.
And if you were to buy a boat today, what would it be and why?
Probably a Nordic Tug 50 or 54 because I grew up going slow and going long distances, and that's the kind of cruising I would like to do, slow and forever.
What is the thing you miss most about your old gig at boattest.com?
Easily my friends. I made an awful lot of friends in that job, and we saw each other around the world, which is kind of cool. So yeah, I miss my friends.
Well, we're glad to have you here on the show today. Thank you, Captain Steve. Let's do this. Welcome back to Full Displacement. This is the podcast by Current Yachts, and I'm here today with Amanda Haley. Hi, Amanda.
Hello, Marilyn.
We're here to introduce you to a friend of ours. His name is Captain Steve, and you may be familiar with Captain Steve's voice. Good morning, Captain Steve. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thanks so much for having me here.
We're delighted to have you here to tell us about what 40 years of boat testing can teach someone about buying one. And so, without further delay, tell us how your career even began with boattest.com and where you are today in your path.
Well, it actually was kind of interesting. I started making a video boating course so you could get boating certification at home instead of having to go to those classes every night for a week, which few people have time to do. So that came out, and I did really well with that. I sold a ton of those. And then YouTube came out, and I put a few of the clips on YouTube. And one of them was how to pee off of your boat without falling overboard. So
That's true.
very controversial one, but it's like, yeah, save your cards and letters on that one. So the owner of Boat Test took a look at this. He said, "Hey, this is great. Have you got any more?" I said, "Yeah, I got about 10 hours more." Sent him the whole course, and ultimately we made a deal where I would rebrand it. It was the Smart Boating with Captain Steve is what it was called. And then we just rebranded it the boattest.com Smart Boating Course with Captain Steve, and Boat Test was selling them for quite a while. And after about a year of that, and we made this partnership without ever having seen each other. We didn't even shake hands. It was all done over the phone, and it worked. After about a year, they said, "How do you feel about making some videos for us?" I went, "Okay, why not?" We set up a little gig at one of the smaller boat shows in Southern Connecticut, and I went in there completely unprepared. I showed up.
What year was this, Captain Steve?
I,
When was this?
I'm so chronologically challenged, I couldn't even tell you the year, but it was about 20 years ago.
Wow. Okay.
So I show up at this boat show, and the cameraman is there, and the chief operating officer of Boat Test. He was there, and we met each other, and hey, thanks for doing this, all that stuff. Cameraman tells me just stand next to the Seakeeper gyro. This is when that first came out. So there's
Wow.
another little time frame. Here's this little round dome sitting in a booth. Stand next to that. He sets up the lights, puts a microphone on me, and then he says, "Okay, action." I'm like, "What? Action what? Where's my teleprompter? Where's my makeup girl? Where's my Winnebago?" None of which were forthcoming. So they just said, "Talk about what you know, and just so we can edit this out, just go ahead and speak." And once I opened my mouth, it just started coming right on out. And
More
that's one
natural.
of the few gifts that I have. And in high school, I had to do an oral presentation one day. We're supposed to come in with some index cards and just make notes and talk for 5 minutes. Well, of course, I didn't bother doing. I went out fishing that night, and I came in the next morning and I asked the teacher if I could borrow some index cards. He said, "Sure," and I took them, and calls on me first. This is right after I got the cards. He calls on me, and I go up and I just started talking for 5 minutes, and then sat down, and he's, come here, let me see the cards." Took the cards. There's nothing on them, nothing. So he says, "See me after class," and after class he goes, "Your ability to come up with the B word in a moment's notice will probably take you further in life than anything else." And yeah, here it is.
story.
I just keep talking until the cameraman says stop, and then we reset. And that's kind of a unique gift that has brought me to where I am. But that's how it started with Boat Test. It started with this little course that they started selling, and then come make videos for us. And then it became a full time gig. And it's been, man, what a ride. What a ride.
And I remember meeting you, I want to say circa 2010, 2011. I was working for a group Beneteau at the time. We had started a collaboration with boattest.com to really promote the powerboat brands of Jeanneau, Prestige, and Beneteau. At the time, not very well known. And so we got to work together at that time. And I just really enjoyed your energy and just the kind of the fun gig that you have really when we give you access to boats and things like that. Can you walk us through what a boat test actually look like from the phone call to the manufacturer to hitting the water? It sounded like you were a bit more prepared then than you were in high school.
Yeah, pretty much. First of all, I don't make the initial calls to the manufacturer. That's done at the office. There's a whole team that takes care of that. Then they make all the arrangements, sign the contracts, and now we've got dates. And then it's time to get in touch with me. Steve, we've got this date for you. They even have somebody, thankfully, that makes all the arrangements for travel and hotels, rental cars. All of that is done for me. And it's coordinated so that the cameraman and I meet at the location largely at the same time or close to it. So neither of us have to wait hours for that flight to come in. So then that night is when my preparation starts. I mean, I know the boat that I'm going to be doing. I do a little homework on it. What's it look like? You get the layout, the feel for it. And then that night, the cameraman and I will have a little meeting of what the mission of the boat is, what we need to project, what we need to pro- portray this boat as, and some key features that we need to make sure we don't miss. Stuff that's new, stuff that's, out of the ordinary on this boat, just to keep checking each other and make sure he gets what I want and I get what he needs. And then we meet the next morning. We show up and now we meet the company representatives. Always got to be somebody from the company there. They don't just give me the keys to the boat and say, have a good time. And we have a little meeting and I'll record that meeting probably on my phone, something like that, just so I have notes. What do you want to project on this boat? What's the mission of this boat? What are you most proud of on this boat? Why this boat? Why now when you've got all these other boats? What's the purpose of this boat? And that becomes very revealing. And now I've got a basis for what I want to project in the video. And then we have critical decision to make, which is if it's a large boat, we're going to do two videos, a features video and a performance video. Actually, we do that even if it's a small boat. We'll do all of it, but it's going to be one or two videos. But the question then becomes, it's 9 o'clock in the morning now, 8 o'clock. Do we go out and do the on the water portion of it now, or do we do it afterwards? And the reason that's such a critical decision is if we go out now, it's probably because it's going to be windy later on. The afternoon wind picks up and now it's going to be, a rough, choppy ride. If we go out now, we may take some spray and the boat gets wet. Now we got to have the camera ready. Do we clean it again? So it's a lot of give and take with that decision right there. But it's generally an easy one to make. It's going to blow 20, 30 knots later on this afternoon. We need to go out now. So we just do that. And then we go and do the on-water portion and get the footage that we need. There's usually a chase boat. We gravitated a little bit to drones, but they can be problematic, especially in the wind. And if you're not a really good drone pilot, it creates its own set of problems. So it's generally there's another boat that we're going to be doing anyway. So now there's two boats. I've got to switch from one to the other. So one becomes the camera platform, one becomes the focal point. And then
Yeah.
we switch out there.
I recall one logistical thing that really I hadn't thought about before I started working with you guys. I met one of the test captains and the cameraman. I can't remember Captain Steve if that was you or a different captain from Boat Test. And we were down in St. Pete by the Vinoy and we were all set up to go on this powerboat. It was early in the morning. And guess what happens? You have a lot of humidity in the air and you have dew. And if you open the lens cover too quickly, your camera fogs up. I mean, what a nightmare, right? And then we
Yeah.
all of course, know the tricks too about prepping the boat. If you have dew on the boat, the best thing to get it off is to first actually get a rinse off to get all of that dew to come off the canvas and the boat side. It's just, there's a lot of prep, not just on the boat side, but the equipment side, which you now have obviously nailed down, you and the team when you did that for us.
Yeah,
So
we give a whole prep letter, as you know. The boat needs to be camera ready, make it clean. The bed should be made, not all messy, and wiped down. The bottom should be clean. The propeller should not be dinged up because we're going for best performance. There's a lot of prep work on part of the manufacturer too.
And sellers, take notes. This is the exact
Yes,
same
yes.
list, right, Amanda, that we give our
I was
clients
just
when they're
about to say this sounds exactly what we tell sellers before we do a video media shoot on their vessel. You're basically going through what we do before
Yeah.
a video shoot with our sellers.
Yeah, when the builder's not prepared, it becomes really problematic. You've got one stateroom that's filled with canvas and, the extra pillows and just lines and the life jacket, all that stuff. So now we've got to move it out into another location so we can shoot that room and then move it all back in. And it just becomes time consuming. And a lot of times we don't have that time. If we've got
Yeah,
to do three,
true.
4 boats in one day, we need to make the best use of that time. So, yeah, so that's kinda how the day goes, and then we just run through the whole schlemiel of the boat, and once it's back at the dock, then we go through the whole walkthrough, and that's where things get really interesting because now I've gotta just regurgitate everything I know and I'm seeing about the boat, and the beauty is I'm obsessive compulsive, so I can talk a lot about what I'm looking at and what I don't like about it and what I do like about it. Um And if I try to have the builder listen to everything I say, because if I say something wrong, it's all on camera. Most of it's not voiceover, it's all on camera. And when you say something wrong, changes come hard later. If I say this is Alcantara suede and it's not, it's just, some other material, they want that correct. I'm like, well, now it's, 3 weeks later when we're in the editing booth and you want to take it out, it becomes problematic. The video gets jumpy and things like that. But they never do listen. They've always got something going on. They're on the phone while they're dealing with clients, and I get that. And they have a job to perform too. But it just becomes difficult when I'm left on my own time and time again to say what I think I feel and from what I read in the options list that I think this is. Is it a 5 kW generator? No, it's a 7 kW. It's like
been there too.
We've been there.
simple little things like that become so problematic. But at the end of the day, we make it work, and we did make it work for a long time, and it was an experience. It really was.
You've flown all over the US and occasionally to Europe as well to test everything from 16-foot boats to 60-foot motor yachts. Can you tell us the strangest condition you've ever found yourself in?
Yeah. Typically, when I go somewhere, I'm laser focused on this job, and you have to get in and get out because there's probably another job right after this one. So people think it's like, "Oh, you've seen all these great places." Like, "Yeah, I went to the south of France. I'm on the French Riviera. I do. It's wonderful." No, I see the airport, the marina, and the hotel. That's it. And then I gotta get out of there. So that's the downside of this job. You go to these exotic places, but you never get to see them. But the weirdest thing, to answer your question, was one time we went to Palma, Majorca. The cameraman and I flew to Palma, Majorca, and we were there for 3 days. We had 3 days booked. I show up it's a press event, and typically at these events, we get, as you know, a whole day blocked for what we do. And I show up and I went to the coordinator and said, "I'm here. What day do I have? What's my time slot? You've got tomorrow from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock." And I went, "Wait a minute. Wait a minute. No, we need way more time than that. I need the better part of the day. I mean, I can take away the full day, but I need the better part of the day. You've got tomorrow from 2 to 4. Okay. I've got tomorrow from 2 to 4. So we made it work. I just did the whole boat in one take with very little do-overs. And then we had the rest of the time to ourselves. So unprecedented 2.5 days to go tour Palma, Majorca,
It's
which was
Very
amazing.
nice.
very cool.
Yeah.
Which was very cool. I mean, we, sampled some of the great restaurants and saw street performers and saw some of the sights, and never get to do that kind of thing. So that it is the weirdest thing that's probably happened is I'm in this nice remote location and we got to explore it. Very
It is
cool.
beautiful. I've been there and it's one of a kind.
Yeah, that huge castle up in the
Yeah, the
hill.
castle. Yep.
Man, it was very cool.
And that was probably your first and only chance to do a little sightseeing while you were doing a boat test.
Pretty much. Yeah.
So, for having been on the manufacturer side, I understand how the collaboration worked. But for those of our viewers who are not familiar with how things worked, how would you handle your tests and reviews? Because Obviously, Boat Test is known for having all these very positive reviews, and that's a fair knock, but that's because it's a relationship, and those manufacturers wouldn't invite you back, and you wouldn't have that contract back to shoot more of their models if you trash their product. So, how do you walk that line, Captain Steve? How do you stay honest within that format?
That's a very valid question, and it is a fine line indeed. Um, I can't say I don't like this. This sucks. What were they thinking? Even if I want to. However, the savvy viewers that have met me at boat shows and said, "We get it. We understand that when you say this," if I don't like something, they can figure it out. Let's say I just don't like something simple, like the beverage holders are too small. I'd like to see this be a little bit bigger. They know I don't like that, and that's a subtle. Now, if I really don't like something, like if I hate something and I can't say I hate it, then the key words were, "Now this is interesting."
I was just about to say, you used the word interesting.
And it's funny when people come to me in a boat show saying, "I know when you say this is interesting, you really don't like them." Like, yeah, you cracked the code. You got me. So that's how I walk that line. I'll say this is interesting and then I'll point it out. And it's left for the viewer to decide, is it interesting because it's awful? Is it interesting because it's new, unique? That's up to the viewer. And it's a good way to handle it.
That's a perfect segue into my next question. Is there one thing that a boat manufacturer consistently oversells and that a buyer consistently overlooks?
Yeah, I would say the fit and finish and maintenance costs that the buyer will project maybe goes to an extreme, and the buyer tends to not even think about those things when they're looking at the boat at a boat show.
So give us an example.
The Boston Whaler, I mean, hey, unsinkable. They've played that to death, and they're right to do that. I don't mean to knock Boston Whaler; they're a great product. They've done the unsinkable thing to death, and it doesn't touch on the fact that after you buy this boat, there's maintenance, there's upkeep, especially if you're in a saltwater environment. And buyers just don't think about that kind of thing. But yes, that's something that,
That's the passion purchase that we all know about.
yeah, that's something that manufacturers oversell a lot. Our boats are solid and wonderful, and you don't have to do anything. And it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. But then you get it, and you just don't think about the fact that it needs a lot of maintenance. Any moving part needs maintenance, no matter what it is, whether it's a boat, a car, plane, whatever it is. Boats are more susceptible to that because of the environment that they're in. And it's just something that people don't get. You got to knock off 20% of your purchase price at least per year for upkeep on that boat. And
Your number is 20%.
yeah, that
Yeah, we
might,
actually talk
yeah.
about that in a previous podcast.
What did you use for a number?
We've talked with a surveyor who is also a marine mechanic and shared that in the Bahamas, he likes to see his clients budget 15 to 20%. And we know the figure that's being thrown around is 10%. And of course, people then challenge and say, well, if the boat's really old and it's already a cheaper price, then it can't be 20%. And we're like, listen, it's a ballpark.
Save the cards and letters. It's a rule of thumb, it's not a hard and fast,
But the
And
bottom line is I agree with you, and I'll let you, Amanda, speak to your experience too with our clients. We see this overlooked all the time too. And the first thing we care about when we educate, especially first-time buyers, is what they should expect as far as, the headaches and the cost of the maintenance of the boat. And you can't just go in and not know. So we're very much about that transparency, about what you're going in for.
And
It's not
good
just
for
buy the
you.
boat and you're done.
Good for you. That's important because, I mean, you're caring about your clients, you're caring about the people you're serving, and that's big. You're not just trying to make that sale and get out.
Right. It will not help us in the long run. We know this, and it doesn't help the client.
yeah, one of my biggest pet peeves is the stainless. The quality of the stainless on a vessel. If you use cheap stainless within a year, it's going to be pitting within a saltwater environment. If you use a good quality stainless, and that's something that you can immediately touch and feel. And it's the simplest thing. Yes, it costs more in the production of the vessel, and that's what sets apart, in my opinion. That is what sets apart a quality made vessel and a production boat.
What sends me running away from a manufacturer is when they throw out the term marine grade.
Yeah.
No such thing.
No.
There's no official term of marine grade, especially like your example, stainless steel. There's no marine grade stainless steel. Got 316 grade that's used in the marine industry, but when you throw out, "This is marine grade, so it's gonna last forever." No, no. Time to move on. You're using buzzwords just to make a sale, and I'm out of here.
And so this is a really nice tie into my next question. I wanted to take a step back, Captain Stephen, go high level for a moment. We had a prior podcast episode where we talked with InfoLink about trends in the market as far as how boat sales and registrations are progressing and how certain segments of boats are becoming much more popular. Pontoons, for example, while others are taking a hit, the runabouts, for example. And then some other segments, for example, sailing yachts, are also taking a severe hit and are continuing to decline. What I'd like to hear from you is taking all of this into account and how, the landscape of manufacturers has changed. I'm sure you've seen trends because you've been on so many boats and tested so many boats and visited so many factories. What do you see as the biggest shift in boat building since the 2000s, let's say?
I would have to say shift from heavy wood and fiberglass to composite materials. That has changed the whole landscape of boat manufacturing, in my opinion. When you take a carbon fiber or vacuum bagging a boat, you've got a much lighter boat, a stronger boat, a more expensive boat, but it completely changes the landscape. Now you've got more efficiency, better performance,
Durability?
durability. Yeah, it's a game changer, I think. So that's probably the biggest thing I've seen that's changed the landscape. Yeah.
Can you speak to the outboard engine craze? Even 50 and 60 footers now are coming out with triple, quadruple engines across the transom. Did you
We
see that coming?
I don't wanna say I saw it coming, but I did agree with that trend since I was a kid. I grew up with my, little outboard boat on the river here on Cape Cod, and
Evan Reuter Johnson.
Evinrude.
I
It
knew
was
it.
an Evinrude. But I had questioned stern drives ever since I was a kid. That big engine box in the middle of the boat taking up all this space that could be used for something else. You've got that torturous route going from the engine making two 90-degree turns down to the propulsion. It just never made sense to me. I mean, they're reliable now, and they're great, but back in the day, they were just so problematic, leaking and things like that. So I've seen that outboards were the way to go way back when I was a kid. I didn't see that they were going to take over the 56-foot yacht market. I didn't see that coming, but I agree with it. I think it makes sense from an owner operator standpoint. You've got so much more usable space in the boat. It's so much easier to maintain and operate. And if you have to change out an engine, we're talking what, 4 bolts, and some wiring, it's so much easier. They're plug and play. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense, but it's not one that I saw coming to this level. But I am happy to see that it is where it is.
Yeah, and I will put the link to that episode in the description so our audience can refer back to that. I think the number was 87% of powerboats registered sold in 2025 were outboards, which is unbelievable, right?
Huge, huge.
And another trend, I was hinting to this earlier, is pontoon boats that have gone from just really basic lake boats to almost like cruising, luxurious motor yachts, but on the pontoon base.
With a very high price tag.
That's been a fascinating trend.
We've gone from 0 to 100 in a matter of years here. What do you think is going on?
The short answer is that pontoons went upscale, high horsepower, high tech, and the buyers followed right along with it. And there's a very good reason for that. They solve a multitude of needs for the buyer. And yeah, they used to be just, here's a circular couch in the front, a circular couch in the back, and there's a console on the side with maybe a head or just storage in there. That used to be it. But now it's a bar, a floating restaurant, play place, slides going into the water. It's gone next level, and it's working. It's working. It answers a lot of questions about what do I want in a boat, especially if you're in a protected area, a river, a lake, something like that, which a lot of people are. We're not all going offshore. So yeah, it's taking off, and with good reason. They're doing a good job at making these boats. So yeah, it's neat to see.
One of the questions we always ask our clients is, how do you see a day on the water? Describe to me your perfect day on the water. And sometimes it's a pontoon that meets every single one of their requirements.
Yeah, I mean, you wanna be able to enjoy the boat, have fun on the water. We're here to have lunch on the water, go swimming, get out of the water, take a shower, maybe even go to a restaurant afterwards, so we need a place to change. All of those ingredients are there. They're all there, and it's working really well in a very stable platform that's not rocking and rolling all over the place. Those pontoons being wide apart, that spells stability, and that means a lot to a lot of people, especially those that might get seasick, that's pretty much eliminated. So, yeah, they're good time boats. They really are, and the fact that they're getting so mainstream and, yeah, expensive plays right into the fact that it's working and people are going for it.
Yeah, it's fascinating because I've never really spent time on a pontoon, and I can see how the versatility is really appealing. So the next segment I want to dive into with you guys and taking advantage of Captain Steve. I mean, your experience spans so many years, so many boats. We don't know if there's any other human alive that's been behind a helm of more different boats than Captain Steve, like truly. And so we'd love to have your take on all of the things you've learned to help our buyers figure out what they should be looking for, right? So we're going to utilize all of your knowledge here to ask questions on their behalf if that's okay. If someone is about to spend $150,000 on a boat, what is the one question that they should ask that you don't see as being asked or not often enough?
What is the actual cost of the use of this boat per hour? Nobody considers that. You've gotta take in the dockage, the trailering, storage, maintenance, all of that needs to be taken into consideration. It's very easy to say, "This boat's only $150? Yeah, and I'm gonna go boating every weekend, and the kids are gonna love it, and we're gonna be a family." Well, then it rains the next weekend. Okay, well, we'll go out the next weekend, and it's blowing 30 knots. Okay, we're gonna do the next weekend. Well, you know what? The lawn hasn't been taken care of in 3 weeks now. It's You wanna use it if the intentions are great, you wanna use that boat every weekend, but the reality is, it doesn't come across that way, it doesn't happen, and
So you would advise do your math first,
do your
right?
math
On the
first,
buyers.
look at it realistically. How often are you going to have free time to use this boat, and what is that going to correlate to on a per cost basis? I'm a pilot as well, so when you look at an airplane, you have to figure out the per hour cost that
Yeah,
it.
I was gonna say cost per hour. That's pretty intense. You're not joking.
Yeah, I'm not joking. When boats cost a lot of money and you need to
They
make
do.
sure that you get a return on that investment, and saying, "I'm gonna go out in the boat this weekend," isn't the proper answer. It's, "Can I go out on the boat this weekend? And if I can, how many times am I gonna do it this month?" It
That's fair.
It's an interesting take. And that's why we've created a spreadsheet to help our buyers put those costs together, each
Perfect,
That's right.
individual for their
Yep.
boat. And Marilyn can link to it, I'm sure.
Yep. I'll
perfect.
put it down there. And yeah, that was my first question. Amanda, I'll let you take the next one.
Yeah. So, what do you look for in the first 5 minutes of being out on the water that tells you that this hull is the real deal or not? Are there any telltale signs?
There are, when I get on a boat, and pull away from the dock, once I get it out onto the water, is it pounding? Is it riding with the water? Is it opposing the water? Is everything on this boat rattling, or is everything solid? I can size a boat up in about 5 minutes to determine whether I like this boat or not, or whether it's gonna be around for the long haul, or if it's just a quick sail, get it out of here, and then it turns into trash in 5 years. But, yeah, once you get it out on the water and start seeing how it feels, how it handles, how it performs, how it holds together. Are the windows rattling? Is the whole console shaking and rattling? Those are real telltale indicators.
And aside from the budget, right? Our reality check early on, what is the number one mistake that you have seen first time boat buyers make when evaluating boats? Let's say they're comparing three different boats and there's something they're missing or they're not looking at carefully.
They only look at the cosmetics. What boat's better looking? I mean, is this a Mercedes or is it a Volkswagen? I shouldn't, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean. Is
Yeah.
it this level or this level, or this level? And without taking it out on the water, you're selling yourself very short. Try before you buy is my biggest piece of advice for everybody that asks that very question. What's the one thing I should look for? Well, get out in the water. I've been on boats that are just gorgeous, but handle horribly, and it would have killed the sale for me. But when you look at it at a boat show and you've got boat show incentives and there's never been a better time to buy this boat, it it ends up catching you in the end, and then once you get out on the water, then you've got buyer's remorse. So, yeah, always, always try before you buy.
Okay.
That's why the sea trial is so important in a marine survey. That portion of the time on the water is truly, truly important.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
Now, this might be a sticky question that can or cannot answer on camera. Okay. Are there any boat brands or categories that consistently deliver? And then on the flip side, that consistently disappoint?
Yeah, but it's not the way you think. It's not good boats versus bad boats. It's more manufacturers not staying in their lane and trying to be everything to everyone. And when they stray out of where they're supposed to be, it becomes very problematic for the buyer and the seller. Uh, I- you know what? I'm independent now, so I can go ahead and name names. But let's look at Sea Ray. They've tried to break into the luxury market with the L series of boats. They were nice boats. They looked nice, but you're not a luxury manufacturer, and it was a huge failure. A huge failure. That's not where you're supposed to be. You need to stay in your lane. And when a manufacturer does that, then things just come together so much more cohesively if you know what you're supposed to do. You look at the high-end performers of, center console boats, the Grady Whites and the Boston Whaler, super strong boats. They're going to be around forever. There are Boston Whalers that were here when they came out and just sold in the '70s. They're still here. I mean, those boats are just solid and they maintain their value. Same with Grady White. Grady Whites were around when I was a kid, and those boats are still here. They're offshore fishing tanks, and they do it very well, but they're not getting into the luxury yacht market. Um, so when a boat builder strays, that becomes really problematic to me.
That's really interesting because, see, I said the word interesting. Not that I disagree, but we had InfoLink on their podcast share that because manufacturers see trends in one segment, they will try and switch lane to go to a different, maybe more profitable volume based segment, but it can work or not work. And depending on how big the gap is, I could see how it can be a difficult endeavor for
Yeah,
sure.
but when they do it and do it right, it becomes just a work of art. Take your high-end day boats like Formula and Intrepid. They are almost obsessive about fit and finish and perfection, and it shows in the end. I remember going to the Formula factory, and I'm walking past a boat, and this woman is polishing it with an electric buffer, and it was a mirror finish. You usually get that orange peel kind of look, and but this was buffed to perfection. It was a mirror finish. I'm 2 feet away. I held up my watch, and I could tell the time in the reflection, which is my indicator of how well this is looking. And I asked her how long she had been working on this one hull, and she went, "It's been about 4 hours now." I was like, 4 hours? And I mean, it looks perfect. And then as soon as she said that, she took out a bottle and squeezed a whole 'nother batch of compound on it and started writing again. I'm like, "Oh, man." Intrepid, they're so obsessive about doing exactly what they want to make the boat what they want it to be. Take, for example, the consoles. If you make a smooth console, then it's easy to just lift it right up out of the mold. But if you have contours in there, anything that creates a lip, now it's not going to lift out. So you have to have a mold that's multiple parts that have to come away from that molded console. Takes a lot more time, takes a lot more effort, a lot more expense, but they won't stray from it. They just refuse to. They won't take the easy route. And that says a lot about them.
For sure.
And they do what they do very well. So, yeah, it kinda works, but when you get the cheap center consoles that try to be the offshore center consoles and they get pushed beyond the limits of where they were intended to go, then it becomes problematic for everybody. So, yeah, stay in your lane. That's the
Understood.
takeaway.
I have one other question, if I may, since we're actually preparing a video on how boats are made and particularly how hulls come together, and we discuss core materials. What are your thoughts on coring and balsa? What have you seen and what do you caution people about? If you were talking to a friend tomorrow that's saying, I want to buy this boat, and you happen to know that it's balsa in the hull, what are some of the conversations that you may have with that friend?
Anytime you can stray away from wood in the manufacturing process, you're ahead of the game. So a balsa core, all it takes is a small pinhole, and that's going to start taking in water and then saturating and then becoming punky and soft, and now the whole thing is compromised. So, yeah, what while balsa core makes things lighter, doesn't make it stronger, doesn't make it longer lasting. So I stray away from anything that has to do with wood on a boat.
Even when the manufacturer assures you that the balsa was scored and all of it was saturated with resin and that will never happen again, because
It'll
I've
never
heard that a
happen.
lot.
Yeah, it'll happen. It'll happen.
Surveyors, I'm sure, have seen it more than most.
The disadvantage that I have is I see them when they're brand new.
Mm.
I'm typically the first guy on this boat ever, when it's a new model. So I don't get to see it far down the road until, my buddy calls me up saying he has problems with it, or I just hear about it from somebody at a boat show where, I bought this boat because he's always right. But you need to know that, 5 years later, here's the problems we had. So that's kind of how I get into it. But I'm kind of at a disadvantage because I see the new and
Yeah, that
shiny
that
on
is
it.
true. And we get these questions a lot too, because people see them new at the boat show as well, and then
Yeah,
they
yeah.
ask. And
The
I have
trade-off
a
to seeing everything new is I'm at the forefront of this new technology that comes out, and I mean, "Steve, we've got this new propulsion system, IPS. We want you to check it out and try," and, like, that was cool. I was right there when those came out. Digital position keeping or dynamic position keeping, I should say. We tried that out on a 70-foot Viking in Fort Lauderdale, and I tried holding this boat in position manually in a strong cross current, and it was still moving. I couldn't hold it there, but then we pushed that button and it locked right in. Like, okay,
like magic.
game changer, game changer. It was neat being right there when all of that stuff came up.
So we have a few questions now about the tops and flops of Captain Steve. Go ahead, Amanda.
No, I was going to say, you told us before that you grew up on a tiny little boat in a lake with a Evinrude engine. Now let's speak to your personal takes after thousands of boats that you've gone on. Do you actually have a favorite?
I do.
Is there one that you would buy personally?
I do. And it was and still is, you ready? The
Ready?
Riviera 6000 sport yacht. The Riviera
Riviera.
6000 sport yacht. I was on this boat and I couldn't believe how well Riviera did on this boat. First of all, Riviera rarely makes mistakes anyway. They're an incredible manufacturer, but this boat hit every single button of pleasure, joy of boating, comfort, functionality, the handling characteristics. I mean, when sitting at the dock and going through this boat, this was one of the ones we took out on the water in the afternoon because it was going to be nice and calm all day. So I walked through this whole boat first and like, this is just incredible. The materials, the workmanship, the layout, the comfort level. You sit in it and every seat just wraps around you and caresses you. And I couldn't believe how well they did on this boat. And then, as I say, try before you buy. It can't be this good out on the water as it is sitting here at the dock. I got it out on the water and I was like, how are you guys doing this? How are you doing this? I wanted to get this boat out of the water and see the hull form to try and educate myself on how they were doing this and just get an idea of what is going on with the engineering and the design. You advance the throttles and normally the bow comes up and then it gets on plane and the bow comes back down. Not this boat. Comes up on a level platform and then just continues accelerating. We were getting into 4 or 5 foot swells off of Stewart, Florida, and it was just smooth through them, dry. I couldn't believe. I couldn't believe it was then my favorite boat, and it still is. If money wasn't a factor, that'd be the one I would go out and buy tomorrow.
You know this firsthand because just a few months ago, we sold to a client a brand new Riviera 4600. And I felt the same exact way on that sea trial. It was
Right?
just beautiful, beautiful boat all around.
Yeah, they did such a good job.
We need to have a little disclaimer. This is not a video that is sponsored or endorsed by Riviera. Captain Steve, what is the disclaimer that would normally come on the video?
The opinions expressed in the following video are solely those of boattest.com and its test captain. That doesn't apply here. This
I
is
love
all
it.
me. This is
Exactly.
all me. So take what you want from that and, don't
Sure.
sue me. After testing so many, that's saying a lot. We actually thought it would be a good kick to go to Guinness Book of Records and establish a record for the most boats driven, and they rejected it because it couldn't be duplicated. Everything in the Guinness Book of Records has to be able to be competed against and do but they said,
You had an unfair advantage.
Yes, you
"Yeah,
did.
pretty much," but that's kind of a neat little claim to fame. I got rejected by the by the Guinness Book of Records.
So, on the flip side, you've told us what your favorite boat is. Can you tell us about a boat that underwhelmed you?
Yeah, I name names, but I can't even remember the brand of this boat, but it was a flats bay boat, shallow draft, but a lot of deck space made for just, fishing on this casting platform. When I do a test, I take it from idle speed on up to top speed and then back down again and get all those test numbers. So this thing, I'm going up through the performance and I'm sitting in the back. There's like a bench seat in the stern of the boat. You've got the console in the center and then seating to both sides, but there's nothing to hold on to. There wasn't so much as a grab handle. So now this boat's accelerating, going faster and faster. I've got my iPad with me, test gear, GPS, and all this stuff that I'm looking at to record all of these numbers, and I've got nothing to hold on to. And we reached 30, 25, 30 miles an hour, and I'm like, now it's getting unstable. It's a flat boat, and it's starting to bounce. I'm like, you know what? Enough. I'm calling it. First time, and probably the only time. I'm done. Get this boat back to the dock. I'm not reviewing this. I'm walking away. I can't remember the
So, you
name
didn't
of the
even
boat.
do the boat test at that point.
I didn't. No, no, I'm done. I'm off of this boat. I have nothing good to say about this boat. You screwed up making it. You never should have done it. Shame on you. Yeah,
Wow, that's a
yeah,
pretty big,
yeah. It
I would
was
have
it
been
was
very
just
disappointed had
awful.
I been
It
that
was
manufacturer.
awful. So, yeah. And that's not a knock on all bay boats. I mean, I've been on some good ones, but this one was just no. No, get me out of here. Get me out of here. Run away.
So we can't say that that's the reason you left boat tests, but at some point you took a turn, left boat tests, started your own platform. You have your own channel called Captain Steve. Tell us about that transition and what do you do now, Captain Steve?
Well, the transition out of boat test came when I got an opportunity to go in a little bit of a different direction from a fan who stopped me at the Miami Boat Show one day, and he had an idea for doing something completely different and making a marine-based streaming television network, and it was going really well right up until he had a heart attack. And I don't mean to laugh at that, but I mean it was such great trajectory, and we were doing so well, and the plan was working, and then he had a heart attack, and evidently, when you have a heart attack, I don't speak from experience myself, but it makes you reevaluate your life. And his reevaluation determined that he didn't want to work anymore, and he just shut it down overnight. Didn't put it up for sale. He just parked the car and hung the keys up on the hook and walked away. And 15 of us were out of work a week before Christmas. So that was not fun, but it took me in a different direction. I'm still doing some testing on my own YouTube platform. And the problem is that my full-time job now is completely different, and it only allows me 1 day at a time off. I don't get 2 days in a row off. I could take vacation time, obviously, but that takes Florida out of the picture. It's about, any traveling. So I do local work now. I mean, to answer your question, what am I doing now? I'm working for a ferry company here on the Cape and Islands that literally serves as the lifeline to Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket. And it's great. I'm home at night. I don't have headaches anymore. I sleep at night. I'm not living off of airport food.
But you lost your mileage status with United.
Yeah, I know. I still every once in a while cash in my airplane miles, but yeah, it's a much better lifestyle for me. I mean, I'm in the twilight years of my life. I'm not under an illusion that I'm getting older. I mean, there's gray here now. So yeah, I'm running down the clock, and it's time to slow down. So this is my slow down period. I'm home at night, and I like what I do now. It's really good for me, and I'm still on the water on my home waters and working year round. And when you're in New England working year round on the water, that's a rare.
That's 2 months, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm telling you, all winter long we're on these boats and it's so nice. You're the only ones out there. And now it's
Yeah, your season never stops
yeah,
because you're a
it's like
commercial.
mosquitoes out there now, just all around you. And it's,
Yes.
is this guy going to turn? Is he going to get out of the way? Do I keep going? It's like And then they're all on the radio. We get Radio Check and on channel 16. It's like it's just unbelievable, unbelievable. But I love what I do now, and it's doing very well for me. Still doing a little bit of boat testing on the side, but not as much as I was, obviously.
And what are you covering now that you couldn't before?
What do I do now that I couldn't before? Well, I'm able to work with some manufacturers that weren't interested in being a part of the old platform where you pay continually and it's more of a subscription service, and we will keep your videos going as long as you keep paying. Now I make a video and they own it. You can do whatever you want with it. Put it on your website, and you can have even all of the raw footage. So they use it in their marketing. So that's kind of good for both of us. I still keep busy and they get this footage to use and they get a video with the Captain Steve brand on it, and that's what they're looking for.
Well, that's amazing. We'll share the link to your channel and we'll add you as a collaborator. So when people click that subscribe button, they can follow Current Yachts and they can follow Captain Steve where you are today. Thank you so much for sharing all these insights with us and having this just wealth of knowledge at our disposal. Thank you for joining us. Any final words before we say goodbye, Captain Steve?
Just thank you, everybody, for being part of this ride. Without anybody watching, none of this works. And because there were so many people watching and being so complimentary about it, it made a difference. And I appreciate everybody for doing that. So thank you for joining me on that ride. Thanks so much for having me. It's been great talking with you all.
Thank you for being here. We'll see you on the water.
See
Fair
you
win.
on the water.
Fair winds. That is your line.
Yeah, it is.